Tension is a film noir from 1949. It follows a sheepish drugstore manager, played by Richard Basehart, who finds out his wife, played by Audrey Totter, has left him for another man. Enraged, Basehart plots to kill the wife's lover by using a fake identity. He plans to pin the murder on this fake person, therefore no one can connect it to him. Things get complicated when he strikes up a romance with a woman, played by Charisse, while using his new identity. He decides to ditch his original plan, but when Totter's lover turns up dead, Basehart is the prime suspect. A little convoluted? Yeah, but that's why we love film noirs. Trust me when I say it makes more sense when you watch the film. The script does a great job at simplifying the story. I know I just said it was convoluted, but it keeps the story beats straightforward, but its characters multifaceted. It doesn't try to keep you on your toes by throwing in twists and turns every 10 minutes. It spends most of its runtime developing the characters. By making them more complex, it makes us wonder who committed the crime and ask why certain actions were taken. This is what really draws us into the mystery and keeps us guessing. Basehart is especially interesting. He's not the typical noir lead. He's timid, soft-spoken, and not the smoothest with his words. He seems more like the type of guy who would help a Sam Spade or a Mike Hammer on one of his adventures rather than have his own. It makes him a pushover in this type of environment, and people do take advantage. You understand why his thoughts drift into malicious territories, and how he could come up with a plan like this. Richard Basehart treads the fine line needed to play a character like this. He pulls off the meek image well, but he's still believable when he showcases hostility. Even scenes with Charisse are believable. There's a natural tenderness she brings to the role that you can tell has been missing from Basehart's life. She's more than just a pretty face. You believe they have a connection. Like many people, I was skeptical when I heard Charisse was in a noir. For those of you that don't know, she was an actress/dancer who specialized in musicals, most notably Bandwagon and Singing in the Rain. But she knocks it out of the park. Her gleeful nature is still present in this role and helps tremendously. Charisse's character has an adventurous spirit and is fun to watch. You don't even need to hear her talk to understand that. The first time we see her, she's balancing on a railing and support beam to get a picture. That alone is an attention grabber. This is a noir that uses its shadows sparingly. Most of the film is standardly lit. It doesn't evoke a style in every scene. It chooses to use its shadows only for moments of great suspense. Not only does it make the film stand out, but it reinforces the dark nature of certain scenes. Probably the most dated part of this film is the inclusion of contact lenses. When Basehart assumes his false identity, he forgoes his eyeglasses for contacts. It's literally the equivalent of Clark Kent not being recognized as Superman because of his glasses. Well, actually I shouldn't say that, because he doesn't flip-flop between identities with the same people all the time. TCM's Eddie Muller said the inclusion of contacts in the plot was a timely gimmick for audiences because the year before, 1948, soft plastic eye contacts had just hit the market, so I guess this wasn't too far-fetched for audiences back then. When I was watching the film, I enjoyed the music, but there was something familiar about it to me. Because this was an MGM movie, I just assumed they threw in some stock music, because they didn't always have time to score every film. But not only did I discover this film had original music composed for it, but it was actually reused in subsequent MGM films. Most notably Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Designing Woman, and some sections of North by Northwest. I never knew those films borrowed scores. The performer I want to spotlight in this is the unfaithful wife, Audrey Totter. I think Totter is one of the most underrated actresses in Hollywood history. Her performances always resonate with me long after I've watched them. It's not my favorite by her, that distinction goes to The Setup, where she plays a devoted but conflicted wife of Robert Ryan. By the way, I reviewed that movie my first year. I have to bring that up because in that film she's strong-willed, faithful, and loving. Here, she's none of that. She's exceptionally nasty to Basehart and doesn't even try to hide her disdain towards him. She always has this spiteful look on her face. Even in scenes where she's happy, you can still see her vindictiveness. You kind of get the feeling that she enjoys seeing Basehart jump through hoops just to disappoint her. It's hard to believe that such a vile character was portrayed by such a nice woman. Yeah, every film historian I looked up who interacted with her said that she was one of the nicest people they'd ever met, Eddie Muller included. Audrey Totter was born December 20th, 1917 in Joliet, Illinois. She grew an interest in acting in high school after starring in some school plays. She started her professional career in the late 1930s by appearing on radio dramas. After a slew of successes, she was signed to a 7-year contract at MGM and made her film debut in 1945. During this time, she found her niche playing strong-willed women in film noirs. She's most known for The Postman Always Rings Twice, Lady in the Lake, and The Setup. By the time her contract expired, her quote-unquote type fell out of fashion, and she was let go by the studio. She continued to act, but never got good enough parts to sink her teeth into. In 1953, she married Dr. Leo Ford, the assistant dean at UCLA College. She continued to act sparingly, but devoted more time to her family. She had a happy life with Ford all the way until his death in 1995. Audrey Totter passed away from a stroke in 2013. She was 95 years old. I remember reading about it in the paper right before I went to school and was bummed I never had the chance to meet her. But luckily, she left behind a fantastic body of work that me and others continue to discover every day. So if you want to see a well-made noir and discover one of the greatest underrated actresses in Hollywood history, then I highly recommend Tension.